Hey everybody. So in my last couple of build videos, I've gotten lots of comments from people, feedback if you will, saying things like, could every build not just be feudal? Could you do something that wasn't feudal? Is every build going to be feudal? And that made me think to myself, why would you want to play anything that wasn't feudal? Would you even have fun playing things that weren't feudal? And I relent. In this video, we're going to do a build that isn't in fact feudal. I also got comments from a lot of people saying things like, is every build just going to be beating the crap out of people in melee? Will every build just be about overwhelming people with pure melee damage? And once again, I relent. We might do a build that isn't melee here. In fact, we will do a build that's not melee here, but I ask a question, would that be fun? Would even that be something interesting to not just run into melee with a feudal build and beat the crap out of people? Well, I guess. There is a build, though, that I had in mind for this video, a build that is none of those things. It's not feudal and it's not melee. You will not find it on my list. Why is that? Because I've played it on stream a lot. I've played this build on stream so many times, and I end up deleting or unveiling the mod. What does that mean? Unseeing the VOD? You guys can't see it because we do bad on this build a lot, and I delete it a lot, and then I remake it a lot because I think to myself, man, Chaos Battlemages is gonna work. If I try this dies, okay, well if I try this dies, and I always think to myself, well, look, if I just do this better dies, Chaos Battlemages in multiplayer is not very good. I think in single player it'll do just fine. It'll be a very, very fun build for you. But I get frustrated because spending 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of my day getting completely blown out trying Chaos Battlemages again. Yes, I know, you're about to say I just keep stepping on the same rake and dying. Sure. But I'm hoping next expansion, okay, it's coming back. Next expansion, I'm hoping they do some big balance updates for Chaos Tomes and that the affinity tree gets reworked a little bit. And Chaos Battlemages, it's winning next expansion. If you're going to watch this video in a month from now and this video is totally out of date and the build is totally out of date because everything got better, then good. Make sure to tell me that. But as you go into this, we're going to be making the build together, and that should help you guys, because I think a lot of people watch these videos to get ideas for their own builds, and they want to watch this video to learn how to make builds and learn how to do things creatively their own little way, and I think it can be helpful for me to inform you how to do all that stuff. So before we go right into it, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave a comment down below. All these things help me immensely, which helps my channel, which helps me have more time to do these videos. Again, as you guys know, I've been playing a lot of AoW4 in the background, so I'm trying to do daily uploads, so at the very least, you know, I can pretend that we actually make money from this. Anyway, let's go into this. We're going to do Chaos Battlemages. Now, Chaos Battlemages are very debuff oriented. They're very evil. They're very much about destruction, consuming debuffs, chaos, just vicious stuff, right? So we want to come up with a build, an idea, something that looks very evil, something that looks very maniacal, something that gives you that kind of idea of somebody who's going to stick you with lots of debuffs, right? Somebody that's going to maybe swamp kind of flavored, maybe, you know, anything at all that's going to be like that. Of course, we're going to choose orcs because orcs are the most Chaos Battle Mage race out there. Now, for our traits, Chaos Battle Mages have a couple of problems. Number one, they need to go Chaos Affinity, which sucks. Right now, Chaos Affinity is like a black hole. The further and further you go into Chaos Affinity, the worse you do, because Chaos Affinity is, unfortunately, just not very good. However, Chaos Affinity does have a few things that it does well, which is Spawnkin. Spawnkin works decently enough on Chaos Affinity, and there are a few ways that you can try to make Spawnkin actually good. The number one way to do that with traits is, of course, when you go into utility. Is it in here? It's Tenacious. We're going to try to go with Tenacious. Where the heck is... There we go, Tenacious. Now, why does Tenacious work with Spawnkin? Tenacious damage penalties from casualties are halved. So Tenacious is already decent on its own, but it's particularly good when we combine it with the Chaos Tome, Tome of the Horde, which gives us Spawnkin. It buffs everybody of our entire faction, even buffs our hero a little bit with some evasion, and we just get 20% more damage, but we get more units in the formation. Now, while this could be a bad downside, Tenacious removes half of this downside and half of the downside of taking casualties at all. Tome of the Horde is also a decent enough first tome choice, having Summon Irregulars, which is a pretty good spell for summoning things, Unleash the Warhounds being a pretty good siege project that stays relevant pretty much the entire game. Blaze of the Horde, while not being the most amazing nuke spell, is decent enough on its own and can actually cause a good bit of damage to enemies. So Tome of the Horde is a pretty good tome to open with, and it's a pretty good tome just to get a buff here, right? Okay. Coming up next is, of course, what do we do with the rest of our trade points? Well, when we decide to use our trade points, we need to kind of base it around what are we going to do with tier 4. Now, there are 3 tier 4 units that I would say you could generally choose to go with a chaos build, at the very least a chaos battle mage build. There is a 4th one, the accursed trickster, but when we do accursed trickster, there's actually a slightly different build we can go for. It's more shadow oriented. We're not going to be going for that. There's also a chaos eater build you can go with. We're also not going to be going with that one. We're going to be going with either a transmuter or a geomancer build. Now, when we do look at these 2 units, we see the same problem on both of them. That's right, the 32 movement speed and the no mount option. These are slow. They are both very slow. And because they're slow, we don't want to be lugging around 32 movement speed units the entire game. So after, of course, we decide to yoink all these off here, we have the choice where we can go with Tenacious. And then, of course, we can also go with the Athletics. Athletics allows us to keep a staff and still have 40 movement speed, or alternatively to have our main character use a 2-handed sword with 40 movement speed. It allows our entire army to have a baseline 40 movement speed. Athletics is just generally good. Tenacious, while seemingly not that good on paper and doesn't affect our hero or our lord, and you could make some solid arguments that Tenacious isn't as good right now. The alternatives are, if that you don't want to go Tenacious, there are some other options you can go with. For example, and I'm just saying this to give you some ideas here, we can go with Arcane Focus. Instead of Tenacious, Arcane Focus just gives us more damage. Now, of course, Arcane Focus with Spawnkin will be the most damage, but we run the high risk that if an enemy uses any sort of combat spell on our units, any sort of AoE, anything at all, that our damage will be mitigated and reduced super hard. So I think a lot of people just find that Tenacious and Athletics are pretty good, at least with the build we're going to go with here, but you do have your options for what else you want to go with. Careless is also pretty good on Battle Mages, although they will spend their early game kind of in defense mode, baiting out enemies to walk into them. For the most part, they're pretty much never going to go into defense mode after that. And really, battle mages are best used when not standing there in defense mode. So it is a negative, but it's a negative that we can easily make up for. Now, when we do want to make up for this, of course, you've got your pretty basic options. Cold-blooded, if you don't want to get morale bombed. Adaptable, if you just want to try to get your guys up to a higher rank really quickly. Sharp Eyes is an option, not a good one. Hardy for 8 HP is decent enough. Elusive exists. I wouldn't call this a real option, unfortunately. There's no things offensive, and this does allow us to go with Arctic Adaption. Now, we can go Arctic Adaption. This allows us to get to liquids. I'm hoping they rebalance liquids. A lot of people in single player don't realize how broken liquids are. Those are the magic materials that spawn in the snow, but we're not going to focus this build too entirely on using that. So we're just going to go with a little bit of HP, because battle mages are notoriously low on HP, and this can just help you out a little bit.
Origin culture.
So after that, we've got a bunch of different choices on our culture. Fortunately, we've got the perfect one for evil battle mages. The perfect culture that you guys have been begging me to do a video on. There's one guy who goes in my comments all the time and says, could you please do a culture on high? Or I should say a build video on high. So that's what we're going to do. Now, why are we going to choose high? Number one, high goes pretty good with Spawnkin, because high does pretty good base damage. We've got the 3, what is it called? Holy damage? Spirit damage, there we go. So we got the 3 spirit damage from Awaken, which is a pretty high amount of damage right there. We've got a very powerful tier 3 battle mage that enables us to start setting up a battle mage comp pretty early. Tier 3 units are expensive, but they're definitely worth getting out. And before you get to tier 4 units who could afford tier 4 units, armies of tier 3 units are very cost efficient and very deadly. And Spawnkin, again, in combination with that Awaken damage, allows us to get a solid early game performance, especially when we combine that with the, what do you call that thing? Tenacious. There we go, because I don't know if I said Tenacious. Holy also, High, there we go, also has the Sunwell. The Sunwell allows you to get a research SPI. This allows you to get lots of research while not actually putting a tome into research. Having at least one research SPI is basically required to play the game seriously, and yeah. So High Culture just fits all the everything we would need here. Now the disadvantage of High is the tedious micro of having to awaken your army all the time. Your turn timer is taking like 30-40 seconds longer every turn just because you need to use so many awakens. That can be annoying, I will admit. I'm not a big fan of that as well. There's also the other downside of High, that if you don't get to pure good or pure evil, that you won't actually get many benefits. Now, of course, you can choose one downside society trait that puts you into neutral, and then if you try to keep your faction in neutral the entire game, that will enable you to get the where's the alignment gen? Here we go. If you keep yourself at neutral the entire time, then you can have the neutral alignment agenda, which gives you food and production for each city stability level above neutral. That's pretty good for your cities. You can combine that with some effects that give you decent enough city stability. I would say pure good is awful. Neutral is decent enough. Pure evil is probably the far better option here, particularly because of how easy it is to get to pure evil by just generally doing evil actions around the map, right? And once you do sit at pure evil and you do start combat and awakened, it will fade off after 3 turns, but for the most part 3 turns is a decent amount of time. It's not perfect. High Culture does have a lot of early game and then fall off, but if you're doing Chaos Battlemages, that's just generally how it's gonna go. And yeah, it's just one of those frustrating things where it's like, yeah, that's just kind of how High Culture is sometimes. You will need to sit maybe with 1 or 2 supports in your army just to be a little bit useful. Now, for society traits, you've got many different options here. There's a lot of different options. Obviously, you can go Signs of Evil. This allows you to sit at neutral, and just if you can get your city stability above neutral on neutral alignment agenda, that can be a bit of a buff. So Signs of Evil is definitely one choice. Another choice is the obvious Fabled Hunters. The one thing for this build I do think you will need is you'll need to put 1 point into a Materium trait, because that's just how we're going to go with this build. We're going to need at least 1 in Materium to make this whole thing work out. Now, you could go with 2 in Materium, and that's not bad at all. So, for example, I think Runesmiths is probably your best first choice to begin with. Runesmiths allows you to make all those enchantments you will be stacking much cheaper, because Chaos builds tend to have very bad SPIs. Then there is, of course, the downside where if you have such bad SPIs, you will actually sometimes not be able to afford armies because the enchantment upkeep will actually just get to you. I think Chaos builds are the only builds in the game right now that actually sometimes struggle with stacking all their enchantments. Other builds can very easily be floating 200, 300, 400 gold, even with full armies of tier 4 enchanted units without breaking a sweat. But unfortunately, Chaos, through just having such terrible SPIs, is actually struggling sometimes with this sort of stuff. So I would say Runesmith is just generally good. There's some versions of these builds, if you want to go elemental into a tier 5 Materium Tome, you can definitely do that. If you want to go with the more demon route, the more just giga pure WA damage route, you don't have to go to the second point, but you will need at least 1 point. If you want a second point, I would say Reclaimers. Heavily underestimated this Reclaimers. Having literally infinite crafting tier 4 items is quite powerful. But let's say hypothetically you don't want to go with Runesmiths. Of course, you've got Fabled Hunters, which is pretty good, and then you've also got Mana Addicts, which is pretty good just for getting that lifesteal into your Battle Mages. You also start with an extra, I believe it will always be a support unit, because Battle Mage and support will always be a support unit if you're going high. You can then go with some of these other ones which are okay. Hermit Kingdom, Gifted Casters is okay as well. So all of these are decent enough options. In the next expansion, we might even see a hypothetical universe where Chaos Affinity is actually decent, in which case Prolific Swarmers might be good. We're trying to idiot-proof this video for the future, right? And of course, if you just want to do pure good and get city stability through high, which is a choice, it's definitely an option you can go with. You can just go a typical Devotees of Good, which isn't bad. You can, of course, just combo this with... I would probably not combo this with Chosen Destroyers. I don't think his build is good enough early game for that. There's 3 different visions you can go with. Really, the only thing you need to do is Runesmiths. Now, I think Fabled Hunters is just really good for high, because high has those really good shield units, and those shield units can really carry you throughout the early game really hard if you just keep them alive. One of the best ways to keep them alive is to just keep healing them every turn with Fabled Hunters. Then they don't die. And if they don't die, then they're gonna be alive. But of course, you've got many options here on what you want to do. I do believe this version of the build... Yes, okay. I'm just thinking of the tomes in my head. This should work pretty much fine. So, of course, our first tome is we want to go with Tome of the Horde, because Spawnkin... Battlemages do have an issue where, as they're starting to scale up, that they will have some weaknesses in the early game, meaning that a lot of the buffs you get for Spawnkin don't actually... Or I should say, not Spawnkin. A lot of the buffs you get to Battlemages won't actually affect other units, and therefore will generally make your other units weaker, because Battlemages only start turning on once you get to a tier 3 Battlemage. And even then can tend to not turn on, right? Like, even if you're at tier 3 Battlemages, sometimes in battles, like a tier 1 shield unit just sitting there tanking things, especially if it's a high veterancy unit, can actually outperform a tier 3 Battlemage, right? So what you want to get Tome of the Horde, because it's good at buffing your entire army with that Spawnkin buff, and that allows you to start scaling up and start stacking up all those enchantments for Battlemages without actually yeah. Now, of course, what ruler do you want to go with? Pretty much anything is going to work with this build. Champion, Wizard King, Dragon Lord, Eldritch Sovereign, Giant King. We're obviously not built around Eldritch Sovereign. We don't have the 15% magic damage. That would be great for him. We're not built around Dragon Lord. We're not built around Giant King. We're not really that built around anything at all. We don't really have a specialty. There's some builds which are blatantly better with certain ruler types, but I don't think this is one of them. So we're just going to go with the generic champion. Now, of course, what do you want to do on your ruler? We've talked about this a lot, and unfortunately, I do believe the harsh reality of the ruler balance right now is that if you do go warrior and you do grab that lance and you do run around on a mount, that you'll generally just do better early game. I think that's pretty much true for everybody. I just think, unfortunately, warriors are the best, but you guys don't want to see that, so of course we can go with a warlock. Warlocks are a bit weaker for now, right up until they get level 4. If they get level 4, they get that zombie, and then they also get raised dead, so your ability to fight in battles goes up substantially. You also get Spawnkin zombies, which is pretty cool, because then you just got lots of mini zombies. You can, of course, turn off the Spawnkin aesthetic if you don't like it. But, yeah. If you turn off Spawnkin, at the very least, it won't shrink your heroes, which is nice. Now, if we do decide to go with high, we do decide to go with a warlock, because we're debuff people, right? We will probably want to go with a poison orb, because we still want to be on a mount, and I just think poison orbs are really good. The blight damage is fine. We could go with some of these other ones, but I think I talked about this in my video. The problem with not starting on a mount in order to get some slight buffs is that it's not really that great. And particularly if we do decide to go Reclaimers, then we can do a Warlock with Lethrite Orb, and we can just build it off our Pantheon as a tier 4 once we start with a mount, so that we can ensure that we do actually have a mount the entire game. So reasonably, I would just start with a Poison Orb. Now, we are athletics, so of course we could start with a Staff, and I believe the problem is that, yeah, staves are 16 damage to the 12 damage of poison bolts. I don't think staves are really that great. There is the one staff. Which one is it? Is it the Staff of Necromancy? Yeah, the Staff of Necromancy starts you with a Raise Undead. That's on the Pantheon. That's your unlocks. Somebody has asked me to do a video on unlocks and which ones are good and how to path to the best ones, yada yada. Personally, I just think that all the stabs are really bad right up until you get to at least the Pantheon unlocked ones, because then at least they get something. Stab strength is at least decent because you can weaken an enemy 3 times and get strengthened. Yeah, you can AoE debuff enemies at a pretty good range. It's okay, it's not exactly great. There's also Cryomancer Staff. Cryomancer Staff is probably your best option by far if you're doing a staff. That's because the Cryomancer Staff has the Freezing Blast ability. Freezing Blast ability is a single action use for range, 90% chance to freeze enemies. So particularly if you're fighting these early game enemies who will be tier 1 or even tier 2 and have 0% status resist, you'll have a 90% chance to freeze them. 90% is basically 100% of the time, so long as you don't hit that 10%. So the Cryomancer Staff, if you're gonna go with Staff, this is blatant your best option. Otherwise, you can just go with the Mount. Even though we have athletics, 49 movement speed is much better than 40 movement speed. It's a lot more movement speed. All right, so let's go with the Cryomancer Staff because we're like evil battle mages with a Cryomancer Staff. If you want to be a little bit more thematic, you could at least, that one doesn't look right. That one looks a little too shadowy. I mean, at least it kind of fits with the chaos thing. We are a warlock, so I mean, I guess this helps us get Raise Undead a bit earlier to help battles. Cryomancer Staff is probably your best option right now to try to help out early battles and to try to get your action economy to be best, right? Stuns are great for the economy. Okay, now on aesthetics, this skin color is obviously not doing it for us, and we do have some skin decoration that's also messing with us. Now, if we are doing Chaos Battle Mages, what I'd like to do sometimes, the light blue color on orcs actually comes out looking more like this, which I actually really like, especially if you're trying to do like a mage kind of thing. I don't know why, this just looks way more magey to me. Now this hair, I'm gonna give you a secret. If you do this hairstyle on orcs, one of the reasons you'll always basically see me doing this hairstyle is because if you use the hair color root and hair color top, what you can actually do is multicolor it. And if you do it like that, you can get it kind of looking those sorts of, I kind of like that. I just kind of like that crazy looking color right there. You can combine that with different things as well to kind of get that sort of, it works really well on orcs and it works good on other guys too, but I think it works really, really well on orcs, right? Someone noted that orcs are like one of the more options. So of course we can do, you know, you can kind of do the wizened battle mage or, you know, that. Even though it's, you know, I've done it a lot, you can go with builds like that. Of course you go with white, you can kind of get that fiery flame kind of look on them. If you're kind of trying to do chaos, a lot of people do black. I actually think this one kind of looks more lit up, more energetic. You know, the yellow. Now of course you can go yellow, kind of do like, ooh, wait, you can do yellow white. Kind of looks, yeah, just a little bit lit up. I don't know, it just looks a certain way, right? You know, so you can figure with that, right? A lot of people don't really mess with the hair enough, in my opinion, to really get a good vibe out of that one. And then of course helmet, if we're trying to do a Chaos Battle Mage, there is a few good options here. You can go with the evil hood. You can go with the other, I think that's more of a rogue hood. That's more of an evil hood. I don't really like all the head options. You're trying to be like an evil kind of guy. This one's a little bit too on the nose. It's too obvious. That one's, it's a bit overdone to me. I have like this one on warrior characters because it's new, it's exciting, it gets people going. This one kind of looks cool too, but you know, it's not really what we're going for. It's not the vibe. This one's good if you're trying to do like holy. This one's good if you're trying to do, you know, like magical. I thought there was one more. Maybe I'm going crazy. Anyway, a lot of the high ornaments, they don't, these ones are kind of outdated. They came with the game's release and they don't look bad, but they don't look particularly amazing either. So what we could just do is leave that as is for now. And then what we could do is go with kind of like a glistening, we could go with the look like we just ate someone and we are a warlock, or we could go with the kind of, that one covers the whole body, but it's kind of a war paint thing. But ooh, what we could do, oh man, you can really see how you can get into it, right? So we got the red eyes, we got the red look, we got the kind of like ashen body color kind of looking there. We got to do a good cape. Now, of course, you don't need to go with a cape. Particularly with this armor, I think you'd probably have to go with the cape. But I do believe High has at least some decent enough robes. Yeah, they got some decent robes. I don't really like them in this style, though. In fact, I don't really like anything they're doing here. Oh boy, High, you're really messing with me. I can't really think of something good here. Well, this is probably, I think, the best baseline look. We just got to come up with a cape that really accentuates it to get us that evil vibe going on here. Ugh, these ones are too, they clip a lot with the armor, and I don't know, they're a bit too on the nose, aren't they? They're a bit too obvious, they're a bit too forced. Is there any other outfit? This is very important, okay? I'm telling you right now, getting your outfit to look best for your vibe is just very important. Maybe we ought to try more like this, because, okay, now if we color this red, okay, we're definitely getting somewhere, and then we color the armor maybe like a black. Okay, this is definitely somewhere, because now instead of being like armored, it kind of looks like a leather now. So we kind of colored it in a way that gives it off a different vibe. Now this gives it definitely a better vibe, right? So we got some good going on right here. So really what we need to do is come up with a pose that spells evil maniacal, right? Something that's like, I actually didn't mind this one. Okay, so this is definitely, okay, see, now this is why it's important to spend time here, because you can come up with a character that you like a lot more. Even though this is definitely clearly meant to be armor, kind of looks more leathery now. The cape, look, if you looked real close at it, if you looked real close, you might notice that it doesn't exactly fit perfectly, but so long as we're not looking right up close to it, it's totally fine. If we look at it in this color, oh, I guess if we're looking at it in daylight, you can definitely see, but actually, I don't mind this at all. No, actually, this is not bad. It's not bad at all. Now, let's just go red here for this. For an emblem, I think that emblem's totally fine. I like the skin color. I like the look. The armor color is definitely, no, I wonder if we go, no, it gives it away too much. No, it's too shiny. The black kind of removes the shininess of it being metallic-y and kind of makes it look more with a sheen. And I definitely wanted more of a leather look here. So yeah, I think this is going pretty well. Now all we need to do is, of course, we need to get him with the proper build. Now, do we want him to be too muscular? It's not muscular enough. That might be too muscular. So yeah, I kind of like this one being a little bit better. Now we could make the legs. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, the legs were definitely a little bit too long. So we go like this, and we definitely end up with that kind of evil advisor, kind of evil mage looking kind of vibe, right? No, I think this one came off really well. No, actually, I kind of like everything. I kind of like how everything came off. Okay, no, this is perfect. I like this. How much time did we spend on that? I don't know. Anyway, what were we talking about? Chaos Battlemages? Okay, so what were we doing here? Okay, I like this character. I'm gonna keep this. This is great. Oh man, I love this character. Oh, this is such a good vibe right now. Oh, we have to do our other people too, though. Wait, all we really need to do is change the armor color. And then we need to change the hair color to that, right? Okay, this is perfect. Then make the skin color. Do we go with the... Yeah, actually, that's perfect. Ooh. Oh, yeah. See, we're technically high, but you can see in the background, we definitely don't look high, do we, right? Like, we look straight mellowed out right now. Okay. What were we talking about? Tomes, right. Okay, so... we've got the research SPI from our tome, our Tome of the Horde. Or, what am I talking about? We've got the research SPI from High. There we go. Let me recollect my thoughts. We got. I spent so much time designing my ruler. I totally got lost. How much time did I spend? 10 minutes designing my ruler. But look how well I did him. Oh, come on. Oh, you guys gotta tell me that was worth it. You guys liked every step of the way. Admit it. Okay, so we did Tome of the Horde with high, so we have a research SPI. We need at least one for this build to work. Now, there's a couple of ways we can do this. Now, if you guys truly want the full Chaos Battle Mage experience with the full wall, with this screw it, I don't care about scaling, let's just go pure damage. Okay. That, of course, is gonna open with Tome of the Horde. Then we've got Tome of Evocation. Tome of Evocation gets us Lightning Blades and Lightning Focus. We've got the early game, we're going to be relying heavily on these shield units. So shield units with Lightning Blades in combination with Spawnkin, they're going to be doing lots of damage. That's just generally going to be pretty good for us, right? Now after that, we're going to start entering tier 2 tomes. We're going to want Tome of Mayhem, because Tome of Mayhem is going to start buffing up our battle mages. Mark of Misfortune is really good for just making enemies screw up. Mark of Misfortune is one of the most frustrating things you can do in the game. It is one of these things that a lot of people don't think about, but until mid to late game, when the Order Tome with its triple fortune is just totally counteracting it, until that point, I would say that Mark of Misfortune is just a very difficult thing to beat if you can actually get it useful. Now, of course, the best way to use Mark of Misfortune is on, well, range units and on battle mages, but we're not getting battle mages till tier 3, so it's going to be a bit of a rough call here, but I do think that Tome of Mayhem is pretty good. We won't need Tome of Mayhem if we went with some different trait choices, society traits I mean, but Tome of Mayhem is just going to generally be a pretty good one, right? Then, of course, we're going to want Tome of Artificing. Why do we want Tome of Artificing? Tome of Artificing is one of the only ways to get damage on the battle mages. We have Siege Magic, and of course, we still have Artisan Armaments. Artisan Armaments gives us even more buffs to these early game units, our sword dudes. Now, we could rearrange this a little bit. We could go Tome of Artificing first into Tome of Mayhem. That would probably be better to buff up our shield units a bit more in the early game. And do remember that each time we research a enchantment that it's actually faster. Why is that, you'll be saying? Because you forgot, because I spent 10 minutes designing my ruler, you forgot that we have Runesmiths. Runesmiths gives us negative 40% knowledge cost to unlock anything. So even though we are chaos, even though we have a terrible affinity chart, so long as we keep lots of enchantments to unlock, 2 into the Tome of Evocation, we've got 1 in the Tome of Mayhem, 2 in the Tome of Artificing. We can keep unlocking these enchantments, and we can do it way quicker, which allows us to get through to these later entries a bit more. Now, once we do start hitting tier 3, we will reach Tome of Pandemonium. Tome of Pandemonium is one of the most powerful tomes in the game that unfortunately is also not very good. Why is it not very good, you'll say? Because unfortunately Tome of Pandemonium has the problem here where it doesn't do as good as other tomes. A lot of tier 3 tomes have power creep, super duper mega hard. Infectious Insanity, despite being a pretty good debuff, is not nearly as good as it used to be. The Vessels of Chaos minor race transformation is outrageously powerful, very easy to use. With things like Warlock, this just turns into a phenomenal damage buff, both for your heroes, your lord, and your units themselves. Havoc Magic is outrageously powerful on your battle mages, giving such a good chance to give really good debuffs on enemies. I've talked about this in my Chaos Tome video, I think, which I'll have to update next expansion. Hopefully I'll have to update it next expansion. But Havoc Magic only has a certain amount of debuffs it can apply to enemies. And I do believe it has a 1 in 10 chance every time you apply a debuff of that debuff being Insanity. Insanity being an outrageously powerful debuff that uses an entire enemy's turn to just hit his own allies. So that's pretty good. The other debuffs of Havoc Magic are also just pretty good. Mass Hysteria has the same debuff pool as Havoc Magic, so it also goes right through resistances, and if your enemies accidentally clump up and you hit 4 or potentially even 5 enemies with this one, it's just generally a pretty good way to apply a pretty decent shot at deflecting enemies with Insanity. Problem with this is everything I just described still pales in comparison to things like Tome of Amplification, which will generally give similar levels of damage, but it also gives you more range on your base attacks, but it also gives you more knowledge, but it also, you know what I mean? So Tome of Pandemonium definitely has, I'm not saying it's weak, but it's got a couple of flaws, right? It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still an awesome tome. Now, after that, we're going to want to do one of two things. You've really got two choices here, Tome of Transmutation or Tomes of Geomancy. If we are deciding to go pure chaos, then we're going to go with the Tome of Transmutation. Why are we going Tome of Transmutation? You're probably going to be saying. Because Battlemages are squishy. What if they weren't squishy? Well, introducing the Transmuter. Now, when we do decide to go with Transmuter, we do have some good advantages here. Transmuter has the unique ability to transmute. Transmuting gives enemies, they sustain damage, then you get bolstered defense to all units around yourself, which makes you decently tanky. You then also have Steel Skin, which is a minor race transformation that gives you 2 defense. The 2 defense plus the transmute can mean that these transmuters can often have 7, 8, 9 even defense throughout a battle. For a battle mage, they end up being deceptively tanky. When you also combine that with the Tome of Mayhem giving enemies the Mark of Misfortune, you can end up with some battle mages that can resist blows far better than you could possibly imagine. Now, Tome of Transmutation also has another advantage here, which is Adaptive Armor is an enchantment. We can just quick, research that, get through. Transmute Resources is really good if we ever have a city with good mana, but we're going Chaos SPI, so I probably won't. But of course, the most important part of Tome of Transmutation, the Transmutation Circle. Transmutation Circle allows us to get 3 liquids, which enables us to get that big bonus to have infinite mana. So now we actually can get mana with Chaos, even though we have terrible SPIs. It also allows us, if we have liquids, to get instead into metals to get that defense, resistance, and 10% damage for our heroes, which is a pretty big boost, as well as just getting access potentially to all the different creations out of the Forge that we'd want to get. And I'll probably do a video on Forge stuff at some point. I probably need to, because some people don't realize how big of a difference they can be. It all kind of rests on next expansion. For now, I'll probably calm down guides until next expansion, when I think there'll be more information, at least the big patch, right? So I think Tome of Transmutation just ends up working really, really well here. Now, as we start going into tier 4 tomes, you'll notice the fatal flaw, the horrible downside of Chaos. Same thing as always with Chaos. You'll end up having a tome where you want one thing from the tome, and that's it. What is the one thing we want? Well, all we really want out of Chaos Channeling is Infernal Focus. Fan the Infernal is fine. It's not bad. Sign of Flame isn't bad. I mean, Sign of Flame, if you end up fighting Pyre Templars, actually ends up being, like, really useful, ironically. A lot of people don't realize that how useful this can end up being. But realistically, we really just want this for Infernal Focus. We don't really care about Golden Horde. It can be useful if you, I mean, it's 300 world casting though for a build that really cannot get much world casting, right? So Golden Horde, which we probably can only use once every 3 or 4 turns, can pillage an enemy province. Then once we do that, we can kill our own infestation to summon tier 4 items. If we went Reclaimers, we don't really care about this, but if we do go in Reclaimers, do remember this gives us like 10 Gorbillion enchanting essence, right? Because we oh no, wait, I'm totally misremembering. This is the other one. No, this one sucks. Never mind, Golden Horde sucks. I'm thinking of the wrong one. Screw this one. So yeah, once again, we only want Infernal Focus, Sign of Flame, Fan the Infernal is fine. This is useless. I'm gonna be real. I've tried to use Sacrificial Slaughter. I've tried to use it. Boy, sometimes it really works and is devastating, and sometimes it sure doesn't work well. But yeah, that's Tome of Chaos Channeling. Next up, we've got Tome of Calamity, or alternatively Tome of the Demon Gate. Now, Tome of the Demon Gate can be useful for getting us a major race transformation. That's the only problem in this build, is we just do not have a major race transformation. Unfortunately, the Demonkin one, maybe next expansion this will go better, but for now, the Demonkin sure doesn't do a heck of a whole lot of really anything. We've got Flying, Frenzy, and we ignore the Lava penalty. Cool. Now, the Infernal Fiend type does give us critical hit chance. Critical hit chance does help mages scale up their AoEs a bit more because their AoEs can crit, but they also generally don't get a whole lot of damage out of things. So the Infernal Fiend can just be helpful for that perspective. Frenzy is also pretty useful because we can use this to get strengthened so that we don't actually need to be the Tome of Amplification. Now, if we don't want to go Tome of the Demon Gate because we're going to fight I don't know, like literally any of the 900 enemy types that would have frost or spirit damage, which is like 90% of the game right now. But let's say we don't want to int ourselves to death. Let's say we don't want to hurt ourselves for no reason. We can go Tome of Calamity. Now, Tome of Calamity does work with our build for multiple reasons. Number one, right here, once again, you can see double enchantment. Even if we enchant melee units, it still doesn't hurt us that much, because even if we end up enchanting Pyre Templars, and we could go back at some point, or we could swap up our build to get Pyre Templars. Both things work. But even if we do just research this to begin with, this is just 40% reduced so we can get to tier 5 tomes better. Oh boy, we're gonna reach Chaos tier 5 tome. It's useless. But what we can do is we can get Accursed Armors, Accursed Projectiles. Both of these things are pretty good. Accursed Projectiles also does affect the AoEs of your transmuters, so unlike a lot of other enchantments, this will help. Battlemages do of course have an issue where they can't really get the most damage onto their AoEs. Realistically, your options for getting damage on your AoEs are like tier 4 Order, I think Supremacy, Tome of Calamity. You can also get some from Tome of Artificing because Siege Magic gives 10% damage to Battlemages. There's really not that whole many choices, right? So Tome of Calamity is one of your few choices. So you get Chaos Channeling, Calamity. Now after that, you're gonna want to go Tome of the you're probably just gonna want to go Tome of the Demon Gate. The tier 5 Tome of the Chaos Lord is not very good. Now again, maybe next expansion this changes. Maybe I'm gonna be totally out of date. Problem with Tome of the Chaos Lord is pretty obvious. What is that problem, you'll be asking right now? The problem with Tome of the Chaos Lord is that, as you can see, it just doesn't really do anything. We've got Demonic Onslaught, which gives us Killing Momentum and Hastened. We're getting Killing Momentum potentially on Battlemages for 1 extra AP attack, which is okay. It's not bad. It's just not particularly great. Hastened is also decent, but we don't get the extra retaliation from it because we're Battlemages, so that sure don't work. Incite Rebellion, here's the one I was thinking about. No, that's not the one I was thinking about. Incite Rebellion, yeah, this is a siege project that basically just makes enemies not able to take field battles. Now, against the AI, this will pretty much automatically win every siege. If you're not against the AI though, and you're against a human player, yeah, they're just not going to take the siege battle. They're going to go, oh yeah, I can't beat that. That's impossible. Now, it can be beneficial to not allow enemies to do the siege battle, but a lot of times the buffs they get just affect field battles anyway. Call Forth Avatar Chaos might be good, but as a horrible bug, unfortunately, were two things. One, this is not considered a buff spell, so it doesn't actually buff your board. And two, if your lord dies after you cast this, you're turned off from casting spells as if your actual lord just died. That's not good. Hopefully those bugs eventually do get fixed. Summon Balor is just not very good. Nothing else to be said. I just don't think Summon Balor is very good. If you are going to try to use Summon Balor, what I would probably just do is make 2 tier 4 units, then just smash them together with Fight for Power to make a Balor. And even then, we don't have, unfortunately, the Cosmic Overdrive, so the Balor is going to struggle a little bit. We don't really have much of anything in this build. We can awaken the Balor and give him a bit of a damage boost. That's about it. So reasonably speaking, the build would end up looking at tier 5. I would actually say it would probably end up looking something like this, where we would go Chaos Channeling, because Infernal Focus, maybe I didn't mention this, every time any unit dies, your units get morale and get Infernal Might. Now that morale is really, really good because that enables your units to just permanently sit in battles basically forever, right? Now Infernal Might stacking up gives you +1 damage. As I did mention, it's really hard to get, and this is what I was holding in surprise, by the way. It's really hard to get damage on Battle Mages, particularly onto their AoEs. But oh wait, Infernal Might is one of those ways to do it. Actually, Chaos Tomes are pretty good onto these late game Battle Mages. That's why every time I play Battle Mages, I'm like, I can make it work if I do this, because you get into this late game and you got Tome Chaos Channeling, and Tome Calamity, Tome Pandemonium, and you're like, I know it. I fucking know it. There is a way to make these work. You got the 5 damage here, the 2 damage here, the up to 30% damage here. Like, I know I can get these Battle Mages to work. And then you play it and you're like, damn it failed again. Oh man, so I can't yell too loud, I'll wake up everybody around me. Yeah, so man, I really it's so close to being good. I swear to God this is so close to being good. But for now, yeah, I would say Cast Channeling to Calamity Demon Gate. Now, of course, if we back this all the way up, what we could do in this situation, if we do decide to go with a Tome of Geomancy, Tome of Pandemonium, Tome of Geomancy, what we can then do in this situation is we could hypothetically just decide, screw it. We can go with, there's an entirely different build here we need to do. It would be less of a WA build, and it would be more of, well, it'd be less of a debuff build, I would say. It'd be more of just a, wow, I'm going to do damage kind of build. But we could actually skimp on some things. We could do Tome of Alchemy. And then what we could do is skimp that into a Tome of, they're not going to show it here, Tome of Evocation, pull that into a Tome of, God, why can't I think, it's like my Artificing. It's like I just, sometimes Battle Mages, it's like my brain is like, no, don't do it, not again, save yourself. So we could do in this situation is Tome of Geomancy. Now the Geomancy gives us that Geomantic Crystallization. That gives us more damage. This is another one of the ways to add more damage to Battle Mages. So with this version of the build, we're not going to, unfortunately, have Tome of the really bad one that really you shouldn't be going. Tome of Mayhem. Now, the only downside here is we don't have Transmuters, we don't have Steel Skin, and we don't have Mark and Misfortune, so we're going to end up being significantly squishier with this version of the build, right? Really dangerous, this version. I'm not entirely sure we're going to recommend this one the whole way, but with this version of the build, you would just do Battle Mages, and you would just shift this into more of a Materium route, because of course you do have Tome of Amplification into a typical, this is why you would want to go 2, so we do Fabled Hunters with, I don't know, Reclaimers over here. So if you did this, then you could have the Tome of Geomancy, Amplification, into Tome of the Crucible over here to get those meteor projectiles. Now, of course, you could skip back here and go Tome of Revelry instead of Tome of Evocation, jump out the Amplification. Now, in this world, oh, this is why there's so many different variations on this build. You go Tome of Revelry into Tome of Artificing. Now, in this world, you can do the Tome of Pandemonium. You can grab the Tome of...
What defines their society? Your journey begins.
I forgot Tome of Alchemy gives you one. Okay. In this world, we're just going with Tome of Alchemy to get 2 research SPIs to shoot through the tree. We're getting 2 research SPIs. We're getting the Alchemist Lab, which is the research SPI. We're getting the 1 extra Materium Affinity here. We aren't getting the 2 damage. Unfortunately, we're not getting the 2 damage from the Tome of whatever it's called. But of course, the Tome of Revelry. Why Revelry? You guys know which one I'm going for. Man, all these Chaos Tomes are alike. So we go Tome of Mayhem. Now, if we do think we got too much % damage, we could try entirely different build, but Tome of Artificing here into Tome of... We could actually just end up doing Tome of Transmutation, Tome of Pandemonium, Tome of Calamity, Tome of the Crucible. Now with this build, meteor projectiles, those effects are base attack. Now base attack isn't really what this build is going for. We're looking for more of an AoE type deal, but you know, AoEs are great, base attacks are great. Let's say we don't want to go Tome of the Crucible, we do just go then Tome of Chaos Channeling. Now in this world, we could end up trying to do, well, a lot of different things, really. I mean, Chaos Lord is still just not going to be it, right? But this version of the build does give us different options here. We can go Calamity, Chaos Channeling. We can just then open into Demon Gate. And then, of course, we could just continue to slap on more and more Tier 4 tomes. We could do Gold Touch to get our entire race more resistance. There's that option there. We got Calamity, Chaos Channeling, Demon Gate, Crucible. Am I blind? Crucible. Where's Crucible? Oh, there's Crucible. I am blind. So what we could do is just Tier 4 tome stacking with this version of the build, and just we could stack the Calamity damage with the Chaos Channeling damage, with the Demon Gate demon damage, with then the Crucible damage, and then we could just stack all the damage on damage on damage on damage with this version of the build. And we do have the double research SPI off high, and then of course with the Tome of Alchemy, with the Alchemist Lab, we do have that. We can combine all that into just some sort of giga damage debuff build thing. Alternatively, let's say you don't like Demon Gate, of course, we do have open room for a major race transformation. So we could go back here to grab Tome of Geomancy and do that transformation. We could also do Geomancy instead of Transmutation, but I think Transmutation works a little bit better just for keeping us squishy. Geomancy, of course, does have some advantages here, where we got Resonant Blades, which we can quick research through. Anything you can quick research through is pretty good, right? Now, if you do decide to go Tome of Geomancy, in this hypothetical universe, we could then actually go Tome of the Crucible, because Tome of the Crucible still has those meteor projectiles, and then we could end up with Tome of the Creator at our 10th tome. Yes, this I've been setting this up for 50 minutes now, okay? So this is a version of the build which does skimp out on entirely the Tier 5 Chaos Tome to finally get us at the end to Tome of the Creator is our 10th tome, because we went Tome of Alchemy and got that extra research early on. Okay. I think we've been talking too much about Chaos Battlemages for 51 minutes now, but I think you guys have noticed a lot in these videos. Sometimes it's just fun to talk about this stuff. So realistically, yes, I would say that this works fine. You're gonna be hard pressed to tell me that I could beat someone in multiplayer with this, but look. You show me against any computer, I will beat any computer with this thing, okay? Kick their ass. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for my 10 Tome of the Creator build. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. And as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.